Well, happy Sunday morning, everybody. Hail, good morning, and great felicitations to you. Hope you're doing well this morning. Hope you've been having a good weekend so far. Cheers. I have my coffee in hand. Oh, is that good? And I hope you have your coffee or something that is the equivalent going on for you. And let's see. This is the first I have spoken this morning. So you'll have to bear with me. I've been up for a little bit, but I haven't talked to anybody. Oh, wait, I take that back. I did see Rainy. She was up hanging out with the little girl on the sofa, watching some cartoons or something. And I said good morning to her. And I don't know when she got up. I didn't see her get up or hear her get up, but she was up early. So here I am. Talking, warming up as we go. La 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 la. Let's all do our warm-up exercises for our voices. Good morning to everybody out there. Steph, Cuervo Queen, good to see you this morning. And who else have we got? We got Susie Q is here. And I saw somebody else very early on. Oh, it must have been Field Guy. Field Guy, how you doing this morning? And I think those are the only faces in the chat room right now that I can tell. So welcome to you. There's several others of you out there I can see. But come on into the chat room and spend a little time with us if you'd like. What do you got going today on Sunday? How's your weekend been so far? It's been a long rainy week this week, and rainy in the not the right way, but in the wet way. Well, that can be taken the wrong way too. But it's supposed to be sunny and in the 80s and humid all week. So summer is here finally. It was we finally had our solstice. So it's supposed to be officially summer now. Randall Flagg, good to see you. Welcome this morning. Field Guy hasn't crawled out of bed yet. He needs coffee. Stat. Infusion. Stat. So here, once again, cheers. So I've got my cock cup full of coffee this morning. So what is on your minds? I could just launch into a lot of different things. There are things I'd like to talk about, things that I think we should talk about, but I don't want to launch right away into super seriousness right away on Sunday morning. You mean it's moist? What's moist? I saw that. Not my coffee. My coffee is not moist. So, yeah, it's moist outside. I see what you're saying. Yeah, it's very moist outside. I don't like humidity. Now, I don't mean none at all. That's like saying I wish I could eradicate all fat on my body. But if I did, I'd probably die. We need to have some fat stores. We need to have some things that have fat in them. But I'd like to be 6% body fat instead of 47% body fat or whatever it might be. And like this is fat. There's fat here that's building and things like that in our body. So fat's okay. But if we eradicated all of it, what would we be? We'd be skeletal with skin stretched over it. And so same with humidity. I don't mind a little humidity. Dew points can stay down as far as I'm concerned. It's the dew point that's the killer. It's I don't know what our dew point is right now. I wonder if Siri can tell me that. Hey Siri, what is the current temperature and dew point in my location? I don't know where you. She said, I don't know where you. I don't know. You couldn't hear that because my sound is low. I don't know where you are. Please turn on Wi-Fi, which will allow me to find you. Oh, I see. I'm hardwired in instead of Wi-Fi, so I could maybe restate that. Hey Siri, what is the current temperature, dew point, and humidity in my zip code? 54025. See if we get it now. Mexico's current humidity is 76%. 76% humidity. It's not telling me the dew point, and it's currently 59. So anyway, there you go. So Siri, a fun tool. It's not hooked up to the house. I don't have that going on. I don't want the ubiquitous them listening to everything that my family does or says. So there is some blocking high pattern by us. Damn near 100 last week or so. Yeah, I feel good. Well, you're New Orleans. It gets hot and humid down there. It's hurricane territory. So we don't get hurricanes up here. We do get tornadoes, though. We had a tornado warning the other day. So Steph doesn't mind the heat. I don't mind the heat at all. I don't like the sticky, moist, sticky, wet, hot heat where you walk outside and your clothes stick to your body. I don't like that. You try to peel off your shirt and it sticks and clings to the dampness of your body. So I don't like that. Yeah, the sweating, says Steph. That's another story. I like sweating during a certain activity. Yeah, me too. I've been told that. There are times you're doing certain activities and you're the best kind, it's good because you're dripping sweat. So you go, oh, hey, sorry, didn't mean to sweat on you like that. But yeah. Anyway, moving on from that, or just letting it recede to the back a little bit. I was in discussions with somebody about Israel and their legitimacy to be there. Let's see. Steph says, "Damn, Scotty, you were describing one of my tequila nights." Okay, a lot of my night activities. There you go. Boom. Wow, you are you're an interesting character, Steph. I have always said. So it's always fun talking to you. JP, welcome to the show, by the way. Good to see you in here, brother. And let's see. What I was really starting to go over the just the rudiments of someplace I wanted to go this morning and I wanted to talk about. And if you are knowledgeable about Israel, the founding of Israel, the history of what was Canaan, Palestine, back into the early 1900s and the forming of Israel and the final UN vote. Somebody told me yesterday that that Israel, it was supposed to be a lease, 100-year lease, and that their lease was up. I said, well, now, wait a minute. Israel was declared a state by the UN world vote, back in 1948. It's been not quite 80 years. So I don't know about 100-year lease being up. Maybe they said it's almost up. What the heck is Israel? The Panama Canal. Need to know what you mean by that, Jason. What do you mean, what the heck is it? You're trying to make a point there, I see. 100-year lease? Yeah, I never had heard that before. That came from somebody. I said, I don't believe there was a lease of any kind. The world voted in. Yeah, the UN is useless, Randall. I believe you are correct. But so would Israel be a state today, a country, a nation, if the UN vote hadn't taken place. Anybody know why the UN vote was necessary for statehood? Was it just recognition as a state? It was official recognition as a state. The Panama Canal was a 99-year lease of sorts, so you're right. And so I haven't never heard anything about Israel being on a lease. Now, this is somebody who was Australian, who now lives in Luxor, Egypt. And we had a conversation, and this person was insisting all kinds of things because I put that post up of me wearing my fedora and my sudra and my as we talked about on Friday night, and my kifaya, if you will, or shema, as some call it. And I had this on in my picture, and I was describing that I wear this not because of Israel. I own this. I wear it in honor now, because of what's going on, of Israel. Has this, the question we were asking on Friday night, has this little piece of fabric become like the new swastika out there because of the pro-Palestinian Hamas protesters, and many of them mindless, not knowing what the hell they're protesting in America, the anti-Semitic protests? Has this become a new swastika, is the question. And I refuse to allow that to happen if I have anything to say or can participate in doing something about that. So when I wear this now, I used to wear it because John Ward gave me the other Shema I have, and it's the British Army in Egypt was the Shema, and that's the one they wore, and it's more a cream color, white cream color with black. It looks almost like this, and I would wear that, and then I got this one to signify the support with the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And I had a good friend, somebody who I love and admire, and said something about, I don't really care about what's going on in Israel. He said, I don't care about the IDF, and I don't care about the Palestinians. He says, I'm worried about America. And I said, well, you those things don't have to be mutually exclusive from one another. I can care and be concerned and even worry about America while still having concern and care and worry, if you will, about Israel. I do not believe those things are mutually exclusive from each other. And as a matter of fact, I said to my friend that I said, saying that you could not care less was the words used about the IDF or Hamas. I am worried about our country. And I said, that's the same thing that many Americans said about Hitler's invasion of Europe and his annexing of countries in Europe. And I said, I'm worried about America myself, but I'm also concerned about what's happening to our allies. I can show my support for Israel and also hope that we're never drawn into a war in the Middle East, although we're part of it already, without being an official part of it. I can be worried about what happens here in my own country and also be concerned about the implications of what would ripple affect our country should Israel fall to the same people who seek the death of America. Israel is the one stabilizing factor in the Middle East. Would you say that if Israel did not exist in the Middle East, that the Middle East would be unstable? As unstable maybe as Iraq or Iran or Lebanon or Syria. So we know that there is they'd have their own stability, but there wouldn't be stability that favors the West. That's for certain. I care a whole hell of a lot about the growing anti-Semitism in this country. That's being fostered and driven by forces that would see America killed from within. That's why I show my support for Israel. And caring about Israel and being worried about America are not mutually exclusive from each other. I may wear my kafaya, my shema, my sudra, but I also fly my American flag. So I don't see those things as... Susie Q says, we need our own dome to prevent attacks. This is something that former President Trump has said was part of something he wanted to do when he regains office. And if there's not a way that he's prevented from gaining office, one of the things he wants to do is build our own dome, like Israel's Iron Dome Defense Force. It says, you see the crap going down in Ecuador? Keep an eye on Ecuador. Yeah. I don't know much about that yet, but I know there's some shit being stirred down there. So, yeah, just like they do. And we fund it. We don't fund it 100%, but we fund it. Israel is a very, one of the safest places to be. It doesn't mean they weren't surprise attacked in October. But remember, that surprise attack wasn't by an army. It was by Hamas, Palestinian Hamas, that were there and did sneak attacks and killed women and children at concerts and in their beds while they slept. And most of our enemies have hypersonic weapons. Yes, they do. So we are in a depression, Susie Q. I just don't want to admit that. And I think they're not officially calling it one. Oh, you should. I should what? What did I miss? I missed something. I see, Steph, you said a couple of minutes ago, I should. You said that about a minute ago. What should I do? What did I say? That's a response to. Sorry. Just talking all over the board, so I didn't quite catch what that's about. Steph says, kind of funny that our forces are down there in Ecuador. To look into Ecuador a little more. Our forces are down there, and Ecuador said to the Chinese, no more of your illegals. They broke their contract with them. Interesting. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that... and see, sometimes we have to be concerned about what's going on in other countries and how it pertains to our defense or our, what'd you call that? Our interests, as they say. So all of a sudden, Ecuador has a blackout. Kind of funny, because who supplies the energy? China? So that's interesting. Yeah, there's shit being stirred all around us. And I know, and I have said this before, I don't know exactly how much I believe biblical prophecy, but is not part of the end times the coming of Armageddon, the coming of the Antichrist, the one that is the figure that is opposite, supposedly, literarily speaking, of what the Christ is supposed to be, but very charismatic and charming. But isn't the coming of the end times all linked to Israel in the end time prophecies? It says, all the world, the known world, as the prophecy put it, the known world at the day that was written will move against Israel. And it doesn't speak of any defenders of Israel. So it's interesting. What part will this country play? This country was not part of perhaps the prophecy, because it was not a known world at the time. not a known entity militarily or as allies to Israel. It's interesting. What role would America play in that? Or, as one of my youth pastors said, musingly, when he was talking to the youth group about end times things, he said, what if America doesn't exist at that time anymore? What if America gets eradicated or does not exist as a world power? That's something interesting to think about. You look at where we are right now under this presidency, that's the route we're taking. So this is another reason why I want to see Trump back in office. I want to see America rebuilt. I think we need to retain that strength. Are there other people that could do that? Sure. I do not think that the current feckless administration has the ability to do that because they're not trying to build up our strength. They're trying to, and I would say, I don't think they're trying to weaken us, but I think that that is the sum result of the philosophies of those that are in power right now in this country. And I think that's got to change. So what are your thoughts on that? And who wants to call in and join us? Jason, you don't want to, do you? I don't want to put you on the spot if you're doing other things, but you are always a good participant in these kinds of discussions. And we don't have to stick on Israel and talk about Israel today either. It's just a good topic because it's going on right now. And I think that there's a lot going on in the world that is linked to what's going on in Israel. Kind of like they wrote the script, prophetic, predictive text program must follow their predetermined plan, in your humble opinion. Yes, I agree. I wonder about that. And who is the who you mean in that, Susie? Who is the they you're talking about? The people who originally wrote the prophecies, the biblical Nostradamus that wrote the prophecies, Daniel, John in the book of Revelation. Were these God-breathed prophecies? Were they people who actually saw what was going to be happening in the world? What power did they have to predict an accurate future? Is it accurate, or is it just kind of a general idea that this is what's going to go on? If it was a God that actually God breathed that text into somebody, led them to write certain things, if that is a God that is sovereign over the universe, then perhaps there is detail that's been given to us. But even the detail given in the book of John, the book of Revelation by John, even that detail is still prophetic language. It's picturesque or poetic language, if you will, dark as it may be. It's still poetic language. Didn't come right out. It was written in the terms of what he understood in that day. And keep in mind, too, in Israel, there were many people who believed that, we started talking prophecy and we dropped in numbers. I guess people aren't into this. So I'm sorry if you don't find it interesting. Or maybe you're still listening, you just dropped out of the chat. So just to say, that maybe the people we know that wrote this wrote in their own context. And remember, at the time that it was written, they say John wrote the book of Revelation around 95 AD. So about 60 years after the time that he spent with Jesus as a disciple. So he was an old man at this time, probably right around 90. And when he wrote this stuff. And when he wrote this, was it, we like to say, was it chemically induced? Was it his own version of Jewish or he was on the Isle of Patmos? So I believe isn't that Greek? Isn't Patmos in Greece under some cultural ayahuasca of some kind. Where is the Isle of Patmos? I'm asking. Where is it? It's the northernmost island of the Dodecanese Islands, part of the southern Sporades chain in the Aegean Sea. Yes, Greece. Patmos, a part of the country of Greece. It's 22 miles southwest of the island of Samos and about 38 miles from ancient Miletus on the mainland of Turkey. So he's in the Aegean Sea between Greece and Turkey, and it's a Grecian empire, or part of the Grecian islands. So a little island where John spent his last days and wrote his prophecies. So it's interesting. That's where he was exiled to. I don't remember who exiled him. I don't think it was Caesar per se, but he was under exile. And remember, Rome had sacked Israel in 72 AD. So he's in exile, living on the Isle of Patmos and living there and doing his prophecies. What was, here we got JP. What was his role there? What was he, just an old doddering guy that wrote about the things? What was the basis for his prophecies? Was it God-given prophecies, or was it stuff he cooked up and he said, this is from God? I wouldn't have it in my mind if it wasn't, kind of thing, you know? Jason, how you doing this morning?
I am doing excellent.
Excellent. That's great to hear.
Yes.
You're doing a Sarah with us this morning. We're just talking to your Dot.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting presentable-ish.
I understand that. I had to do that myself this morning. My alarm went off. Of course, I was wide awake at 3:15 this morning. Every day I wake up at, and I think that's since daylight savings time, because it used to be 4:15. If that works out right, if I'm right about that correlation, I wake up every day at 3:15, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be awake yet. Why am I awake? And, you go take care of some business and you stagger back down and say, I'm going to lay back down and I'm going to go back to sleep. And of course I did this morning. Then my alarm I woke up again at like 5. It's like, I don't want to be awake yet. I could get up and, then, your face has warmed up for the day and you don't look like you just slept on it for the last 6 hours.
Some sort of version of death warmed over.
Yes. And so, I didn't get up until the alarm went off at 8:15, which it's set for permanently, 8:15 on Sundays, to make sure I have time to wake up for this little show and time to splash some water on my face, brush my teeth, comb my hair, make some coffee. Well, so the alarm went off at 8:15 and I didn't hit snooze. I just hit off. And of course, then I woke up at 8:45. Again, the reawakening.
Reawakening. Yeah.
So I went and did the appropriate splashing of waters and grabbed what I could. I'm actually not drinking coffee this morning now that we're at least 32 minutes into the show. I do not have coffee in this cup. But
No coffee?
No, I didn't have time to make coffee. So see, if I could have brought the whole apparatus down here, made it down here.
Just get yourself some instant coffee.
Yeah, I need to get some instant coffee. That's what John Ward always liked. Nescafe, brother. It came in these little tubes, these little plastic cellophane tubes. Plasticized tubes, and you rip it open and add it to hot water. So no, I have some very caffeinated soda. There you go right there, Nescafe Gold.
It's actually espresso, quote unquote, of this, and it actually even does have the crema when you mix it up, which is kind of crazy.
Nice. Yeah, I
But,
just have to when I'm running later than I want to run, I could just snap on the hot water pot, click. And Rainy
Right.
got me one of those that has it glows electric blue. And then it boils. Takes about
Black Rifle Coffee has instant coffee now too.
Oh, there you go.
So
I could get some Black Rifle instant coffee.
mostly I take my coffee how any respectable human being would take the coffee.
Randall Flagg says instant coffee sucks, but it's caffeine. That's right. I don't know what the comparison is, but I've got a cup full of, which I don't like to do in the mornings, a cup full of Mountain Dew. And I
like how it's in the coffee mug.
Yes, put it in the coffee mug.
I have to deviate from topic, and I have to share with you guys because I am stupidly excited.
All right.
But Herbie made it to St. Louis.
Very nice. There he
Showed up
is.
this morning.
Oh, this morning.
Yeah. I want to talk about anxiety and losing your mind for the last 48 hours. Well, yeah, 48 hours. Well, because the transporters picked him up Friday evening, was it? Yeah.
And then you didn't hear a word all weekend.
I didn't hear a damn thing all weekend. I was like, wow, okay. All right. Keep it together, man. Yes. Keep it together.
Keep it together.
And then, yeah. I sent an email. I was just like, hey, is there an estimated time of arrival? Because I was going off of stuff at off of the shipping stuff. And it had gone from, pick up on 21st or something like, pick up on 20th, deliver on the 22nd, or pick up on the 21st, deliver on the 22nd, or, something like that, where it's literally going to be like a day, 2 days, like right. less than 48 hours. I mean, it's only a 13 hour drive from Grand Forks to here. But, and then I got another notification from the shipping contractor, if you will, the broker, whatever, is like, oh, hey, expect it between, the 19th and the 1st of July. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? So like, I'm
July.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to
sometime between the 19th and the 31st of July.
No, 19th of this month. 19th of this month, 1st of July.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, so I was like, and I had there's things that I'm doing this weekend where I wasn't going to be around to be able to accept the vehicle. And I told him that. So, anxiety just.
Right.
Because I've had that car for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Like my kids have grown up around that car. We have lots of memories with it. So it's like losing a family member.
The car that I had, I didn't have it for very long, but that I didn't want to lose. I had it when my twins were born. It appears in some of the movies, the videos we took of the day I was bringing Raini and, I'm sorry, my ex-wife and my twin daughters home from the hospital. Was my 72 Mercedes SEL, and it had it was light blue, so light blue, it was like the light blue of a overcast, barely you could see the blue of the sky type of blue. And the interior was navy leather, and it had all leather, and it had real, the real wood things on the panels, all the panels, and that was a great car, a 4-door, big, roomy. It was a 1972. It was a classic. I bought it in 91, so it was 19 years old.
Was that your Pinto?
What's that? No. I replaced my Pinto with a Mercedes. No, the Pinto was long gone at that point. But I had that car for a few years, and then I was driving it back when we moved from. I bought it in Detroit, and when we left Detroit, I had to drive it back, but I also had to drive our regular car. My wife flew back early with the babies, and so I hired a kid from the youth group to drive it with me, and I let him drive the Mercedes. And somewhere along the way, there must have been a crack in the head or something going on. It leaked out all the oil on the drive from Detroit to Minneapolis. The thing just emptied out. And then I see him flashing the lights from behind me, and he pulls over on the freeway. The thing, the engine just blew up on it.
Oh, man.
So we had to tow it from somewhere, I don't know. I think it was still in Michigan. Tow it to Wisconsin.
Okay.
And there it sat on blocks, and we just never took the time to fix it or the money to fix it. And eventually I sold the body. So
that makes me think of the old guys that have, some sort of classic or truly antique vehicle, the 40s, 30s, earlier, stuff like that, even sitting in their yard, and there's like everything growing through it, and they're like, no, I ain't gonna sell it. I'm gonna fix it up one day. Like,
and there's trees growing out of it.
Dude, there's a tree growing through the sunroof. I don't think you're fixing that anytime soon, especially since you're like in your 70s. So
it's a yard ornament.
Right. But you don't say anything because you want to be polite, because maybe they'll change their mind.
Right. So anyway, that went away. I miss that car. I still lament losing that car. And that was about 25 years ago that I lost it, that it's gone.
Yeah.
So that's too bad. But
yeah,
it is what it is. Unlike your car.
Right.
Let's see. What's this? Hold on. I just got to think. We're having trouble streaming to X or Twitter. This may be an issue on X's end. We'll keep trying and let you know if it's resolved. Okay. Thank you. So
yeah, one of the biggest cars I regret getting rid of. I had a 1964 Mercury Comet Caliente, 2-door hardtop.
Nice.
289. Had a 3-speed Mercomatic multi-drive automatic transmission. I had the original window sticker for it, and I would run around Fort Rucker and Daleville Enterprise, all that stuff, early on in my Army career in that thing, and I picked it up for $3,800. I sold it for $4,500 to a older gentleman out of Florida. And we had such a good rapport. Him and his wife drove all the way up from Florida to see the car and pay for it. And I didn't realize he was actually going to pay for it. I thought they were taking a vacation someplace and were passing through to check it out. And he pulled out an envelope. He's like, "Well, I guess you want to talk about payment." And I was like, "Oh, you're buying it." He's like, "I wouldn't have driven all this way." "Oh, I thought you guys were on the way to someplace else." I'm like, No. We came up for the car.
No.
Wow. And I was like, "Okay, well, let's go inside." So we go inside, and I'd taken him around for a drive on it, and I took him around some of the back roads to show how the steering was, because I'd replaced the steering gear and all that, and we had fun opening it up on some straight stretches, and had good laughs the whole time, and then came back, had that exchange, and then went inside. And his wife pulled an envelope out of her purse, and in the purse was $4,500 in crisp, fresh bills.
Nice.
And it was like in 20s and 50s and hundreds, and he counted it all out in front of me on the kitchen table. And he's like, "You want to count it?" I was like, "Charlie, I'm sitting here watching you count it, man. I believe you." He's like, "But I will do this."
There you go.
I pulled all the individual stacks back into one, and I fanned it out in front of me, and I just smelled it really deeply and loudly.
Nice.
And he laughed so hard I thought he was going to break a hip. But for years after that, we kept in touch until he passed. And things that he was doing to the car, he got it repainted back to the original color. It was the original color. It just needed, freshened up. And him and his wife pulled all the seats out and all the door panels out and redid all that and re-dyed them. And so it was all the original vinyl. There was no holes in it or anything. It was in good shape. It's just sun faded. So they re-dyed everything. He put in bucket seats from a early to mid Mustang and dyed those seats to the same color as the rest of the interior, and put in a floor console, and he put some factory Mustang wheels on it, and oh yeah, it looked good. And he would send me pictures as they were working on stuff. It's like,
that's kind of nice.
Whenever I sell this, you get first crack at it, Jason, because I know it had a bunch of memories built up with my oldest daughter at the time. My youngest hadn't been born yet. He contacted me while I was in Iraq in 07, 08. He's like, hey, I'm getting up there and I just can't keep up with stuff. And, his wife had passed, and he's like, I'm going to go ahead and sell it. And I promised you first crack at it. So if you want it, it's yours. And I'm like, Charlie, I would love to take you up on this offer, but I'm sitting in the middle of Kirkuk, Iraq right now. And there ain't really anything I can do to get the car, take care of the paperwork, because this is, before all of the digital signing stuff and things like that. So and I knew that he would probably be wanting more than what I had originally paid for he'd originally paid for the car. And, so I was like, I'm going to have to pass. And that one hurt.
Yeah.
That one hurt a lot, but, I knew it. I liked knowing that it was taken care of and appreciated and kind of included in it, which was kind of cool. So that's probably one of my biggest car sales regrets. That and my Porsche 944 that I had. That thing was a beater. Clear coat was peeling all off of it. The interior was shot.
Nice.
Power steering sprung a leak, and I couldn't get
a lot of beater Porsches riding around.
So. No, you really, well, 944s you do, but those were kind of like the poor man's Porsche when they came out. Same with like 924s and stuff like that.
Around,
yeah. But man, that thing ran like a scalded dog, even with the power steering disconnected. Handled like it was on rails.
We had a kid at Bible college.
Yeah,
that, drove a Porsche around.
Mm-hmm.
Porsche. I think he had one of those. But he was one of those kids in a school that at the time only cost about $1,000 a semester.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was a non-accredited school, a small Bible college where everybody around the country that came to that school came because they were ministry bound. And
right.
We had, I think, about 700 or 800 students in total when I was there. And everybody had to save up, money just to buy new socks kind of thing. Everybody was poor. They were all going to be in ministry, And, and this kid attended college and he had a Porsche. And his dad was in big business. His dad happened to be the music minister of the big church where I went.
Gotcha.
I'm up in the city, and he was something to do with the textile industry.
Okay.
So, yeah, he made pretty good money, and it's so he bought his son a Porsche at 18 years old.
Nice.
So there you go.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Oh no, it's weird how you can get attached to vehicles. And, hey, there was a lot of memories wrapped up in the Porsche too, because that's what I drove down from Fort Drum to Northern Virginia to see my kids every weekend.
Sure.
And because it had a 17.3 gallon gas tank, and it was a slant 4, and I could make the whole run from Fort Drum to Fairfax on 1 tank of gas.
Nice.
And so I always took that. And so it was always, the adventures of hooking up, the car seat in the back
Yes.
seat. The car seat in the front seat wasn't any big deal. Run the seatbelt through it, but there weren't any of the cool fancy hooks in the back, and the back seats with Porsche was yes, it was back seat. Yes, it was
Did it have
upholstered.
just
Yes, it looked like seats.
just a lap seat belt in the front, or did you have the crossover?
I had a shoulder and lap belt in the front,
All right.
and same in the back, but it was not very spacious in the back. It's what they considered a +2, and they would put seats in the back so they could say, oh yeah, it carries 4 people, which therefore dropped all of the import tariffs and things like that because of
right.
Yeah, if anybody wants to see something funny, go look up the Fat Electricians, the Fat Files, and it's the chicken tax. I believe the title of the video is Cockblocked, and
nice.
yeah, and it's all about how he can't get a Toyota Hilux in the U.S., a new one, because of this stupid importation tax and tariff stuff that came up to try to get the Europeans to eat more chicken, import more American chicken, and yeah. So they had this +2 setup. That's why, like, all the pickup trucks, like way back in the day, like your Ford Ranger, and stuff, had the 2 tiny little fold down seats in the back behind the front seats.
Right. I remember that, the little side seats. They were about like this and this,
Yeah, little shotgun seats in the back, and those all came about because of the chicken tax. But the back seat in that thing was like,
my knowledge of cars.
It was so crazy.
My knowledge of cars is about this much. I know what I like. I know I've had certain attachments to certain cars, and that's about it. There's certain cars I would like to have.
Right.
But by the way, Steph is asking about this Gary Varvel, and I have not seen the trailer, but this is the movie she was talking about. It's called what was the name? The something Disciples. What the heck is Disciples in the Moonlight? It's called, and it's one of those dystopian type of in the near future, not too distant future somewhere.
Next Sunday Night AD.
Right. So Disciples in the Moonlight. It releases on, I think, July 17th. It says here, something like that. But it's in the not too distant future. The Bible has been outlawed in the United States of America and replaced with a government-approved Bible.
Church of England.
I would say that, yeah, really. I would say that seems far-fetched, but not under this administration. If we kept going the way we're going, I could see this as a possible side thing that takes place. But a group of 7 Christians from Indiana are asked to smuggle the true word of God to the underground churches in Kentucky, Illinois, and Ohio. And with Homeland Security hot on their trail, the smugglers must be willing to risk it all for the word of God and read more. And that's Biden reading the prompter. I just pulled my Biden to risk it all for the word of God and read more. The testimony of Jesus Christ. There you go. So that's a movie that's coming out. I don't know if it's how big it's going to be in its release, because it's a Christian movie and you don't see a lot of those independent filmmakers.
Yeah.
So, and Mike
That's
Pence,
like Book of Eli.
Mike Pence endorsed it, and I'm kind of like, I don't really like Mike Pence. But other people have endorsed it too. Pastors and Christian film and music festivals and things like that have endorsed the movie. So,
yeah. Did you ever see the Book of Eli?
Did I see that? I'm trying to remember.
Denzel Washington. It's a post-apocalyptic.
I saw parts of it, and I, for some reason, never watched the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah,
I do remember it though.
He has an original, well, not an original Bible, but he has a Bible and it's all in Braille.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah, it's all in Braille, and he.
That's right. Yes, I remember
Because
that.
he's blind, and
He's blind.
Yeah, and all that, and they try to get the book from him because they understand that the book is power, and if whoever has it can, through the use of word and values and laws and all that stuff put down in the book, you can bend it and shape it and mold it to your own whims, kind of thing. And it's like imams in these extremist madrasas where they don't teach the people to read, that attend them in Arabic and things like that. They basically tell them, oh, here's what it says, and it's very easy for them to twist and make the message darker and more violent and things like that. And then they send people out, and those people go and teach in the communities, but they teach the extremist version of things. And so basically Gary Oldman is kind of wanting to be able to do something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. And
interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I've seen parts of it. Maybe I saw the whole thing and I just don't remember it. Didn't make a big impact on me. But by the way, Wendy, I just saw a announcement come through. Wendy's Wicked Women is on today. At 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. And it's all about a woman's intuition. It says. And what does she have written here? It says, a woman's intuition is subtle but a powerful source of knowledge that can be a valuable tool in making decisions. It can be described as a sixth sense that involves the brain using past experiences and external cues to make a decision, sometimes so quickly that the reaction is unconscious. Some say a woman's intuition is a product of evolution, as females who can understand and predict the needs of their offspring and mates that are more likely to thrive. Others say that a woman's intuition is hardwired into their brains and that it's a gift that can be learned or taught. What's your thoughts? We want to hear from you. And the link, so you'll have to go watch it on YouTube. You can.
And it can also be grossly wrong, and I know this from experience.
Yeah. Yes, I believe that too. That I'm sure would make for great conversation on her show. Is women's intuition sometimes wrong? Yeah, I think so. And is women's intuition a real thing? Or are women just guessing? I have found when I've experienced women's intuition, it's generally never something that they don't want to have happen. So it's usually geared around this is the way I want things to do and how I want you to act and what I want you to pursue as my husband, and therefore this is my intuition.
The self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
I have encountered that many times.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in complete fairness to women's intuition itself, traditionally, when I have been on the receiving end of women's intuition and it being gloriously wrong, it has been with people that I've been involved with who have traumas, and so they're trying to balance instinct versus trauma, versus data points that they're gathering, and that can create a lot of interpretation issues.
Right.
Is it intuition, or is it because this thing took place in the past, or there were similar behaviors to something in the past? Clearly, what is going on is what happened in the past, and now I'm going to get out ahead of it.
Right. I think that's some of it. It's interpretation. It's interpreting past experience, I think. And of course, I don't want to steal Wendy's thunder at all here. We'll let her talk about that. I may or may not be able to join in today, depending on what's going on around here. So
Yeah.
I make it in late
Same
when
here.
I do anyway. So I'm usually in. I'm one of the late comers every day when I make it to Wendy's Wicked Women, because there's so much going on around here on a Sunday afternoon that going back down to my computer after being on it for 2 hours on Sunday morning is something my wife's intuition says is a wrong thing to do. So you're going to go do what?
Yeah.
You're going to go. So you're going to go back down and get on the computer again? So
Keep doing the and the head nods and ask that question. Maybe I shouldn't
and it's
do that.
not like getting on the computer for me is some people have to go, I got to go boot up the computer because I'm going to go do something. My computer is always on. I'm always, when I'm not working, I'm working. It's like yesterday, Raini had tumblers she needed me to design. So I designed new tumblers for somebody.
Yeah.
And just on a whim, not a whim, a drop of the hat. And so it's always on. I'm always working. I'm always doing something.
Right.
So Roger Rabbit is here somewhere. There he is again. I can attest to poor man's Porsche. Oh, a 944 Turbo was my first car.
Yes. The good old 944 Turbo.
My first car was a I've said it before, a 1968 Buick Electra. It was the Titanic of cars.
Well, I tell you, that Comet Caliente I had, that was at least at a minimum a 4-body trunk.
Nice.
That
Electra, I could have fit more than 4 bodies in the trunk.
Yeah, I could definitely have pulled off a hit with that car. I mean, logistically speaking, you couldn't miss the car, right? It was this powder blue color that they called glacier blue, and it actually drew a lot of flack from coworkers. They like to harass me about it because it's baby blue, and I kind of wanted to be like, anybody looked at the infantry cord on an infantryman's uniform?
Yeah,
and things like that. But I was younger then, and
what year was your Caliente?
64.
Ooh, nice.
64, and it was a 1-year only body style. And
I got a picture of it right here. That is a good looking robin egg blue car.
Right? Yeah. That glacier blue. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what, though, that 289, it would get up and go.
I'll bet.
And believe it or not, I
wouldn't mind having one of those.
My old shop teacher, I went home on leave, and I just swung into the shop class just to say hi to Mr. Plum and stuff like that, because he was kind of a big
Caliente.
And I never drove the Caliente back to Virginia, but I was talking to him about it, and he's like, "Hang on, I got something for you." I was like, "Okay." And so he goes back in the corner of the shop classroom, going through a couple of boxes here and there, and he comes back and he hands me this. It was a Edelbrock 600 CFM 4-barrel carburetor. And he's like, "Yeah, here, throw that on there. That'll wake it up. It might be a little bit big, but you can tune it down." And I was like, "Okay." I got that thing on there and I got it tuned in. And out on the highway, I could get about 26 miles to the gallon out of that thing on the highway.
That's not bad.
Yeah, running at 65 miles an hour.
They were built in a day and age where gas mileage didn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah. So. Which is why the Beetle was so great, because if the Beetle was doing 27 miles to the gallon, you're still beating every other car out there from the bigger manufacturers by 10 or 12 miles a gallon. So it's definitely a time and a day where gas wasn't a huge the cost of gas wasn't a huge thing.
Right. Not a big deal. Yeah, it would be nice to have cheap gas again, wouldn't it?
Right.
So, and here's the picture I found. That's a good looking car.
Mine wasn't a convertible. Mine had the hard top.
Not a convertible.
So it was the same color though. It had the same trim on it and everything. But instead of having the the boxier roof of the regular sedans, I think the 202 and the 402, I think, were the codes for them. It had a roof that had the profile of the convertible roof line, so it was a lot sleeker.
Nice. Yep.
And then there was no B pillar. There was just a heavy duty metal strip and trim on the sides of the back edge of the door glass and the passenger glass, and that would roll down, so you'd have a good 4 feet of open window. I mean, it was
nice.
It was ridiculous how much airflow you could get through that thing once you rolled down all the windows.
Hey, Valerie. Good morning, Val. Welcome to the chat room this morning. Yeah, if I was to get if I had the money to sink into, right now we don't have impractical money available.
Right.
That would have to be an impracticality.
Yeah.
In our budget. And one of these days, before I'm too old to enjoy it, we always used to wonder, how come all those cool old cars are only driven by guys with white hair? This is about the time in life they can afford them.
Or they got the car when they were younger, and it's been a labor of love for 15 years.
Right. That too. So.
Yeah. Can't wait to get the Ford down here. I gotta say that inside. I don't want to offend Herbie.
Right.
I mean, they're buddies. They peacefully shared the same garage for 5 years, but still. The Volkswagens are interesting that way. They develop little personalities and quirks and characters of their own. My first car was a '73 Super Beetle, and it was 3 different shades of yellow and primer, and somebody had done a 2-tone paint job on it. And when you looked at it, the top line of the 2-tone on the side panels on one side was higher by like that much, than the other side, and so that looked all wonky. And but we put a lot of love and time into that car in general, and it didn't like certain people, like quite literally did not like certain people. I learned to drive manual on that. I kind of learned to drive in it too, right? And so Mom would take me out, and we'd go practice shifting. She would drive, I'd work the shifter, kind of learning the motion, the pattern, and timing and stuff like that. And then we'd got to the point where we'd hot swap at some point, and I would be doing actually doing the shifting and driving. And this is all in Northern Virginia, so traffic and tons of stoplights and all that. But by the time I left Virginia and joined the Army, I could drive that thing, eating a cheeseburger, drinking the drink that I got with it, change the radio station and answer a cell phone and shift and drive the car, all in one go without any issues. I was like, well, I'll have zero problems flying a helicopter by the time I get, to flight school. Because I can control everything and all the inputs. But we would get in the car would run fine. Dad would get in the car with me to take me out on a driving lesson. It would idle rough. The inertia reel seatbelt would literally stop halfway, right about here, for like 7 or 8 pulls before it would finally let go all the way to the buckle. And it would miss. It would run weird even while driving. And then I had a conversation with the car in the garage one day. I said, look, man, here's the deal. Whether you like them or not, all right? And I have my own issues with my dad because parents and children. But that man is the guy that is giving us the money to keep you running. You might want to show just a little more appreciation.
Yes. Yes.
It stopped messing with Dad when he got in the car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Now,
then I was dating a gal out at boarding school because I went to boarding school for a little while, and we came home. I brought her home to hang out one weekend. It was only an hour away, so she came up for the day, right?
mm-hmm.
Got in the car refused to start until I push started it. We roll started the car.
Okay.
And then once we got away from home, it would start.
Pop the
Come
clutch.
back. Right, exactly. Get back. We go back out to Front Royal to school. Every weekend I came home, the vehicle would not start. And then her and I broke up at the end of the year. And I came home at the end of the school year, and it fired right up first try. No problems. It was weird.
I
It
think
was
there's
weird
something
like that. I
magical
tell you,
there.
like I was dating another gal, and it literally died while I was driving her home. I was like, what is going
Nice.
on here? And then a week later, she broke
didn't
up with
like
me.
you dating other women.
Apparently, so it's like, I know people say it's crazy, but like when you've experienced it firsthand, older cars like that have a soul. Whether it's just the energy that is put into, because everything was built by hand. Every fender was
What you mean?
run
There's
through a
no
stamp.
soul in a 2004 Honda Odyssey minivan?
Probably a lot less.
Probably a lot less. Yes, you're right.
But you got to figure all the craftspeople, all the craftsmen putting all the time and labor into you artisans give a piece of themselves every time they create something. There's a transference. I can't. That's the only way I can put it. And it's not something massive. It's just a little bit of something. And over time, that builds up. And then, you get all the energy from the previous owners and all the experiences and everybody that's ridden in it. It develops its own personality. It ain't driving off on its own anytime soon.
Right.
But it'll definitely let you know what it thinks.
Yeah. And I can see that. I can see the artisan crafted car, as opposed to, like Roger just said in the chat room, it's the absence of electronics and demons living inside the computers in today's cars. Yeah, probably. So,
yeah,
what I know about cars, again, like I said, can fill a thimble, but maybe on a lucky day. So, I don't do car talk, mostly because I don't do cars. I don't know cars. It's never been a thing. I wasn't raised that way. And if I'd had a dad that was home that was into cars, and I grew up with him, probably be more into cars than I am.
Neither of my parents were into cars. Neither of them.
I will say that being a guy, I find myself sometimes naturally gravitating to them.
Right.
I like the old car shows when they have them. Go out to the little park up here. They'll have a car show every summer, and go up there and take a look at them. But I don't go going, oh, that's an old, 67, 6-liter, blah, 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 blah. I don't know any of the lingo.
Right.
So I just know what I like to look at. And,
exactly. Well, I've got to know the lingo between three different things: Volkswagens, old Fords, and motorcycles. So I can communicate amongst three different communities. And more than that, because basic car stuff, I can sit there and talk to Chevy guys.
Yeah.
You get into the old Ford dudes who still have a Ford with flathead V8 in it and stuff, and there's quirks with those. It's like, oh yeah, well, you got to do this. Yeah, I saw that there was you got to, but when you do that, you got to, just decades of experience coming out from these old timers when they bring up stuff. And that's actually, I think, one of the coolest things about being in those scenes is that the guys that you can talk to who have been doing this stuff since before they could legally drive, and are like, oh, dad was whatever at the Ford plant, turning engines off of the assembly line at plant whatever for 20 years, and all of that knowledge got passed down to him, and then it gets passed on. The transference of that knowledge gets passed on generationally, and it's just super cool. Keeping that alive.
Yeah, I just want to get to that place in life where, and funny, at my age, I haven't reached this yet. Maybe there was a time in the past and it was just the timing's off, but
Right.
I want to get Rainey the kind of car she wants. If it's a new one, if it's a used one, something that she wants to drive around every day.
Yeah.
That's her car. And right now, you know, she's got here's another one of those probably non-inspired, non-artesian cars, you know, a Buick Rendezvous, you know, mini SUV type of thing that drive the family around in.
Right.
And by the way, probably the nicest car we had in recent years was a Mercedes. I can't remember what year it was. It was fairly recent. And we bought it. It was a Mercedes, one of those mini SUVs. It was black with a charcoal leather interior. And we had that about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, we owned that. And then something went wrong deep down inside.
And that's when owning a European car like that is not fun anymore.
Because we'd brought it in and I don't remember what it was running, but it was having some problems of some kind. And they said, well, just to take it apart, to dig in there and find out what it is going to cost you about $1,200.
Yep.
And we said, well, it's time to sell the car. So we sold it, and for about $4,500, I think.
Oh, nice.
And we bought her Rendezvous.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, there's sometimes like, you know, so like I have my Volkswagen Atlas. Before that, I had a Taos. Before that, I had a Subaru, which Subarus are actually pretty great. You know, they can be, I don't want to say maintenance intensive, but after a certain point, there's a lot of maintenance that you have to make sure to keep up on.
I've heard that they were, you know.
But there's people out there who have 300,000 miles on the same engine, same transmission. Yeah, so as long as you do the maintenance and you stay on top of things, you know, just about anything will run you forever.
Roger Rabbit says, hearing the name Buick Rendezvous just reminds me of its ugly stepsister cousin,
the Pontiac Aztec.
The Pontiac Aztec. Yeah, I remember those. I would not have been able to pull that name off the top of my head, but you think about it for a minute. You go look it up.
The Aztec gets a lot of unfair flack, man. Look, it is. If you look at like the original concept drawings of it and things like that,
oh yeah,
it was going to be like actually pretty slick.
And I see a picture of an Aztec I'm looking at right here. Looks exactly same color scheme, silvery gray with the dark charcoal on the bottom, you know, and the tinted windows. Looks exactly like our Buick Rendezvous.
Right? Yeah, but they, you know, they had all the stuff in there where you could, you know, pull the hatch out and get the camping accessories that would go with it, so you could actually like camp out of your vehicle and
you
know, all those kinds of things. And in a lot of ways, it was really ahead of its time. You know,
he says Aztec had a tent. Even I remember from the Chicago Auto Show.
Right? Yeah,
the future.
And now people go online and go to companies to find stuff that will fit their vehicle. Like here's a range of vehicles, as long as you have an opening this big or whatever, you can, you know. So it's like something else. It's
like
something
to get one of those
ahead of its time.
Those rooftop tents for my one of the cars on my list, you know, would be like a Range Rover.
Yeah, I've thought about. I could get one of those for the Aztec. I thought about doing that.
The tenting gear on the top.
Yeah,
you know, with the ladders and all that, and you get up there and you pitch.
Yeah, I thought about. I'd actually considered doing something like that with my Atlas because it's big enough to be able to handle it. The roof's long enough, you know. But then I kind of got looking at it, and I'm like, if I fold down the third row seating and the second row seating, lengthwise, I've basically got like a king bed back there. So it's tons of room, and why sit there and, you know, have a, you know, potentially get wet because a hole developed in a crease in the tent and it rains.
Susie Q, my brother owned a BMW bike for years. He came and saw me when I was in Bible college. When he got out of the Marine Corps, he came and drove his bike down. And at a conservative fundamentalist Baptist school in the late 1970s for my brother, who had gotten out of the Marine Corps, and he started growing his hair out. So his hair was a little long, and comes down on a motorcycle and leathers. Everybody thought, who is this? Obviously a sinner in the hands of an angry God, but he's got a nice bike.
Right.
So,
and BMW makes good motorcycles. You know,
yeah,
everybody
he had that for years and years. I think
everybody I've ever talked to loves them.
I think he purchased a newer one. So, well, several years ago now. But
yeah, I had a
bike for a long time.
I had a buddy of mine back down towards Waynesville. He lived right outside of Waynesville and Dixon, right there by Fort Leonard Wood, who had several of the old school, like, what was it, like a BMW R60 or something like that.
Right.
You know, air-cooled cylinder heads, you know, air-cooled fins on the piston cylinders. And one of them was actually his dad's bike that he'd had for, you know, ages. And, you know, he fixed it up and stuff like that. And he had, you know, they all had sidecars on them.
That's cool.
And they were just the coolest bikes. It was like, man, I would love to get my hands on one of those. They, the rear suspension, they called them a plunger frame, because on the tail end of the frame where the rear wheel would bolt to, the springs and shocks for the suspension were in these little cylinders on the end of that, and your axle bolted into those, and that provided your rear suspension. And you know, it was called a plunger frame setup. And I always thought that it looked really smart, looked really sharp, and just created interesting lines to the bike. And you know, but now try to find one like that, and it's okay. That's a little too pricey. Oh, that needs way too much work.
You know, I was just looking up because you were talking about them, the what a plunger frame looked like.
Yeah.
And I've seen these. I don't even know what the hell that is. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? So I just now looked it up, and yeah, I've seen bikes like this before.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that would be so cool. I always
and they were all European or British bikes.
Frame up with bikes that are, you know, older bikes from the 40s or the 50s or something like that. So yeah. And that's the look it's got. And I thought, oh, that'd be kind of cool to ride around on that.
Right.
I don't know what it's like for comfort when riding. I mean, it's a bike.
Well, and they had the seats had two springs underneath it. So between the suspension on the bike and the suspension on the seat, they ran pretty comfortably.
There you go. And so here I've got a picture of I don't even know what kind of bike this is, to tell you the truth, because I didn't look at it. I just looked at the plunger frame, or whatever you call it, suspension or whatever it is. Let's see, where is it here? Right there. And I'll load this up and we'll look at it. But this looks like it would be fun to ride around on. It'd be one of those things. How many things do we ride around in or drive in or wear or something? Because we think, oh, what will the people at work think when I drive up in that? You know, what if you didn't have that? Or if you're a lone survival of civilization, would you ride one of these? Maybe.
So that is not a plunger frame.
It said right on the picture, plunger frame.
Hold on. Let me. I'm looking at a smaller image. Okay. Yes. Yep. That's the plunger frame. Which is interesting though, because that looks like a Triumph engine.
Could have fooled me.
So I wonder if they. I don't remember Triumph making a plunger frame rear suspension, but it looks like they put a Triumph engine in.
And I don't want anybody wandering into this show to think, by the way, if you're watching, we're not an auto talk or a motor vehicle talk show. We're just talking about it today. So,
yeah.
So
that's a cool little bobber, though.
That'd be fun to have.
Oh, yeah.
I still want my Indian. And,
right.
Again, I don't know as much as I ought to know about motorcycles. And of course, my wife is all for me getting an Indian as soon as she gets her dream car and we build our house on a bunch of property. And then I'm free to get a motorcycle. So, there it is. So
there it is. It's a real sense of freedom on a bike.
Yeah. And, I've never driven a motorcycle before. It's just not my thing.
Well, it's always funny.
Never into them. But I'm into the look of certain bikes, and I'm into the look of things, and I'm like,
right.
That's what I would love to have one of those. I would love to ride around on one of those. I just saw a picture here of a 1948 Indian Chief Roadmaster.
Mm-hmm.
And now they are building the new bikes.
And they look pretty similar.
They look the same way. I think it's the Indian Scout versus the Chief motorcycle I've got up here.
Yeah.
The new 2024 Indian motorcycle Chief looks an awful lot like the 1948. Just obvious modern. They had the big, what do you call them on the bikes? The big full fenders.
Mm-hmm.
It covers almost half the wheel in the front.
Yeah.
And half the wheel in the back.
Yeah.
And which is very interesting.
Well, and when Indian was getting really big with some of their bigger bikes, it was still in the the streamlining days for like automotive industry and things like that. There was they did a lot of the quote unquote streamlined look where everything was all rounded and looked like it was moving while it was sitting there. And it became so iconic. It's just they carried through with that stuff up until the company went under. And the company actually been passed around by several British bike manufacturers. At one point being owned by Royal Enfield. I think another point their engines and everything were built by BSA. Indian has gone through some very interesting changing of hands over the years.
Wow. I'm looking at some pictures that you're not seeing as I'm saying wow. I'm calling them it's a red 1947 Indian Chief plasma cut motorcycle. Oh, no. Never mind. That is a piece of wall art.
Okay.
That is not the actual bike when I call it up.
Yeah.
But I just was looking at the current. I wanted to show you guys the wow, there is a classic. I don't know what year this is, but it looks like an old bicycle that's made into a motorcycle, a classic Indian motorcycle. And this one is why it doesn't say right on it. It's showing there's a 1901 Indian F head.
Yep.
Doesn't do any good about it without showing you. But,
the F head that'd be a side valve engine. It was a flathead, so the valves were not in the cylinder head. They were down in the down on the other side, the towards the block side and things like that.
Right. Here, look at that. I'm sharing my screen just to show you. It'll show you the 10 legendary vintage Indian motorcycles. Well, you got this one right there.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of cool. That's what I think of like a World War II type of era of motorcycle would look like.
Well, that's way earlier.
Here's the 1910. If you take a look at this one, it doesn't get very big, but
yeah,
it looks like a motor, like a bicycle today.
Yep.
You got your that's a 1910 Indian single Model A. Look at that baby.
Yep. With the white rubber tires. Huh? Yeah.
Here, I'm gonna see if I can just manually blow that up by. There you go. So there, that's a little That'd be interesting to tool around on, huh? Oh, look at this. A 1920 Indian Scout Streamliner Monroe Special.
Yeah, that's so Burt Monroe took his Indian Scout, and it was a 1930 or late 20s to mid 30s Scout that he built to set land speed records.
Well, it says here, if we told you a bike set the world land speed record in the late 1960s, you'd think it must be done with a state-of-the-art racing engine, but it was, in fact, accomplished with a 1920 Indian Scout.
Yeah, and he'd sit there in his little shack that he lived in, and because he basically lived in a garage on his property. There was no house. It was a workshop, and he had a area that was set up to live in, and an area set up to work in. And he would cast his own pistons, trying to get higher compression ratios and all of that. And then he hand built the streamliner shell, and then he saved up the money and scraped together the money and shipped it to the States, booking passage on a freighter, working as a cook, and then he got it off the boat and took it to Bonneville, and they almost didn't let him run it because of safety check stuff and things like that, and then he got out there and he set the land speed record for the Indian Scout. Jeez. Maybe close to 200 miles an hour.
Wow. Boy, you hit a rock in the road.
Well, that's why you do it at Bonneville, because the salt flats, it's nothing but flat salt lake bed for miles.
Look at this 1921 Indian Power Plus, the granddaddy of the Chief, they call it. 1921. That bike right there is 103 years old. Look at that. Pretty flashy.
Right. There's a big cross country race they do every year, and I want to say they call it Cannonball, but it's all. I think they adjusted it because the really old ones are getting harder to find, and then some things are just aging into the category naturally.
Right.
But I think you can run 32 or 36 and earlier.
Now, by the way, here is your 1927 Indian 4. 1927, almost 100-year-old design. The new 2024s look almost identical to this.
Yeah, well, that one has an air-cooled inline 4-cylinder engine.
I know nothing about that BS. Yeah. Let's see. Here's your 1927 Indian Scout, the BGE 45, the Indian with a sporty feel. That's the one with the kickstand. I like the kickstand on that one.
Yeah. Oh, the rear wheel stand.
Here's your 1940 Indian Chief. This is the one that now this being a what is that? About an 85-year-old bike, 84-year-old bike. That's got the look and feel of a lot of their modern bikes.
Yeah. Well, and that's what they borrowed from when they were doing it, because it's such an iconic look.
Oh, there's your 42 Indian Model 741.
Oh, yeah, that's
the war effort.
Yeah, WLC. So the interesting thing with that is basically you had Indian and you had Harley Davidson making those for the war effort, and they were very, very, very similar. Some of the big differences, though, if you looked at like the Indian versus the Harley, was where the shifter was, because they were all tank shift, meaning you didn't have the clutch up on the handlebar and shift with your foot. You had a clutch on the handlebar or on the foot, and then you had a shifter, just like in a car, and that's how you would select your gears.
So
Indian had theirs on the right side.
What was Indiana Jones driving in The Last Crusade?
So, okay. Indiana Jones, that would have been, okay, so what he was really riding was a Ural, which is a Russian clone of the BMW, is it R30 or R60? But basically, when Russia and Germany were friends there at the beginning of World War II, and they had the non-aggression pact stuff in place, Germany sent a bunch of equipment to Russia in the exchange, and Russia basically cloned it bolt for bolt, and Ural continued as a company, and the design has stayed very, very similar in a lot of ways. And so they had tweaked a Ural to look like the old BMW.
Interesting. Oh, look at that thing. This says this is your most, of course, it's got an ad.
Right.
I wasn't going to watch a video.
Right.
But it said your most expensive pickup trucks in the world today. Every Batmobile listed in order of appearance. That's interesting. What site am I on? Top Speed, it's called. Let's just take a look here. If we can jump ahead.
Now I have sent Scotty down a rabbit hole.
Yes.
You're welcome, everyone.
Is that a pickup?
Yeah.
A pickup truck. The
What,
90s.
is that like an F450 or something? Oh, good old AM General Humvee.
I remember the Humvee. I always wanted one of those.
Yeah, no, you don't.
No, now I don't.
No, you don't.
I thought it'd be fun to buy a military Humvee.
No, absolutely not. I mean, okay. Oh. Yeah, they're good. They're useful if you know how to maintain them. They do.
A Lamborghini pickup truck?
It looks more like a Bronco with the back thing on. It does.
Look at that thing. I think I could live with a pickup truck not being a Lamborghini.
Oh, a tandem axle.
Velociraptor, that one's called.
I bet that has a lot of carrying capacity with those tandem axles.
6x6.
Yeah. So 6-wheel drive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Some of the interiors of these things too.
Right. That ain't a work truck.
It's a space capsule. I could drive one of those. So anyway, let's get out of that.
Yeah.
Shall we go back to the more mundane?
Well, you know, and early on there with the discussion about old cars developing a soul and the weird things that they do, you know, you're touching into a little bit of the paranormal, the strange, the different, you know.
Yeah.
Transference of energy.
Steph wants hill assist. I get nervous on a hill with a stop sign in traffic. The new Indian Chieftains, she says, are freaking amazing.
Yeah.
The cooling system that Harley now has, but Harley put in a hill assist now.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Harley has done some interesting things with their Milwaukee 8 on their big touring and big cruisers. They're liquid cooled heads now, and they have a small radiator in the front. They're air and liquid cooled. It's interesting, but they have 4 valves per cylinder head, and everybody was really concerned about, you know, oh well, if you do that, you're gonna change the sound of a Harley, you know, and potato.
Yeah.
And but no, they engineered it and tuned it right to where it still maintains that classic Harley Davidson sound.
Sure.
And it's interesting how, because there were points in the past where they were exploring the idea of going with, you know, changing the degrees in the V. So, you know, you'd have your cylinders, like most of your Harleys are a 45 degree. And so they were looking at changing it because a lot of your import bikes have different degree split between the cylinders, and that impacts how it fires, you know, in the cycle and stuff like that, and impacts smoothness of the, you know, throttle rolling on and how it feels and how it responds. And they went away from that when they realized that if we do this, it changes how the whole motorcycle sounds. And you lose that iconic, just that even that little bit of iconic, you know, sound and uniqueness to the Harley Davidsons, that they're like, this is going to damage sales.
I heard something about that with not being into motors and engines and any of that crap.
Mm.
I heard about that in some kind of news story or something, or somebody talking about them on the radio, and they were talking about how the new design was losing that classic Harley sound.
They
And
still sound the same from everyone that I've heard.
by the
Oh,
way, Steph, here's the new Indian Chieftain. This is the 2025, which is releasing very soon, I think.
That's the Chieftain?
That's the Chieftain.
It's running the Scout engine.
So that came up under a search for the 2025 Indian Chieftain. And get up your exhaust, she says. Steph says.
Get up here.
Check out, what was that, Roger Rabbit? Check out Apocalypse 6x6 trucks.
Oh, God.
I have no idea. Apocalypse 6x6. All right, let's see what they look like. One's called the Juggernaut, the Apocalypse Juggernaut. How appropriate. Let's see. Holy crap. Yeah, that thing looks like a tank. A little classier version of a tank. That's kind of neat. You know, I could see myself driving that. All right, kids, everybody in the tank. But they do have them in like bright bumblebee yellow too.
Right. Speaking of tanks, I have affectionately named my Atlas, since it's a German car.
German.
Yeah, it's German.
I have German car.
I've affectionately named it the Panzerkampfwagen, which
meaning
tank.
Oh,
yeah.
Panzerkampfwagen.
Panzer.
Panzer.
Anglicanizing it, it would be the Panzer.
The Panzer
wagon. So Panzerkampfwagen. So Kampf is struggle or war. And
yes.
Yeah, so right. And so yeah, it's they were all their tanks up until the Tiger tanks were Panzers, but it was Panzerkampfwagen, and it just shortened to Panzer.
That sounds almost naughty.
Right. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
My panties come fucker? What? That was German, folks. Don't get offended.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. There is your Apocalypse
Jesus
6x6. All right, kids, everybody in the truck.
I don't even want to think about what those wheels cost to manufacture.
Oh my God. Or replace.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I need 6 tires. Right now, what does it cost you? You go in and get your cheap tires on
like
your Buick Rendezvous. You know, you're spending $500 to get new tires put on.
Yeah.
These are probably at least $500 a piece, I would
probably think. Given that size and the tread pattern and everything. Yeah.
That's crazy. But what is the interior of a 2024?
If it doesn't look as Spartan as the exterior, I am going to be sorely disappointed. I want it to be like a field command center.
Let's see, 6x6 interior. Let's see what they look like. Oh yeah, they're all right. Depending on what color scheme you want, you can get your. It looks like you can get your. I'm looking for a really good picture of a good interior here, but it looks like you can get your standard military Stark, battleship gray. But then it's got some that are purple and gold and electric blue. I'm looking for one. See, I'm a classic kind of guy. I like the brown leathers or the black leathers. This one's got black and red leather. It still looks like a Jeep on the inside.
Right.
But let's see if this looks any different. If I blow this up and look at it. It's all right. I mean, it's typical. It's got a Jeep feel to it,
Yeah.
still that utilitarian look. They jazz it up with color, which is about it. You know, put a little color in this, boys. And,
Right. Well, you were talking about, you always thought it'd be cool to get an old military Humvee.
Yeah,
And you can get them off a government auction for,
I
$5,000.
I know.
Comes with all the maintenance records and everything, stuff like that. But I tell you what, if you ever want to know what re-entering the Earth's atmosphere feels like, get yourself an old Humvee, and then take it up to 60, 65 miles an hour in the interstate if you can get it up to that, and you'll have a reasonable idea. It's not the one for going fast down the highway.
It doesn't like it, huh? The rough ride,
rough and noisy.
I'll bet.
Oh yeah. And then you had to be worried about the engine too. The engine in that was a weird one because they took an engine that was originally a gasoline engine and they converted it to diesel. And so they had to do a bunch of stuff with it. And the engine itself is pretty good, right? It's all the ancillary stuff they had to do to it to make it, good, that ends up being a problem. And so with the fuel pump, for instance, it became a huge problem when the military switched from regular diesel, or what they call DS2.
Gloss over when talking cars. Well, wait till you get to the suspension as sending you into the flip jabbing roto ride, and once they installed the roto ride over the Echo Blaster, it just ruined the whole sound and vibratory suspensionary.
Well, that's the thing you got to understand with the new turbo encabulator. It now has a panametric fan, which effectively eliminates side fumbling, and that makes a lot of difference in operation. Hydrocoptic Marshall vanes.
Of course it does.
Just look up the video, and this is exactly how I imagine it sounds when I get talking on stuff like this to folks who aren't at least vaguely in the know. If you look up a video called the Turbo Encabulator, and the whole video really was an exercise. The original one, the Encabulator, it started off as an exercise basically in showing how to talk about the like in Star Trek, you had the technobabble,
right?
But it was basically how to sit there. The guy was demonstrating how to sit there and talk about highly technical stuff or whatever, using all of this jargon.
Nice.
And it's a bunch of nonsense, but being able to deliver it without, hiccups and sounding, intelligent about the subject. And, the original one from like the 70s, I think it was early 70s, maybe late 60s. I think it was in black and white, and he's got a lab coat on, and he's like, here we have so-and-so's encabulator, which and he just walks through the whole thing without missing a beat. And, they're filming this in front of like a small audience, and you can hear people in the audience kind of like chuckling because they know it's a whole load of hogwash. But he just rolls through it completely deadpan. And it's like, oh, that's got to be really technical. That's a very, very highly technical piece of equipment, and don't know what's going on there, but this guy clearly knows his stuff, and it's all just hogwash. It's really entertaining. And
go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say it was the later one that sprung up with the Turbo Encabulator, which was done like late 80s to like mid 90s, so the video has the feel of that kind of era and has some of the, cheesy music in it. And he goes through the whole thing, talking about all the stuff and doing hand gestures to, demonstrate how something worked, and it would float around within the tech warrant, the non-flight warrant officer community in the Army. Everybody would like send this video around to everybody and have a little caption on it. It's like how everybody feels when talking to a Chief Warrant Officer 5, because like a Chief Warrant Officer 5 is like a it's a unicorn. It's a god walking on Earth. You hardly ever see them. Like, they're legendary. They're the Jedi Master. That kind of thing. And then it would run through the video, and then it would get the what was it? The Muppets. You had the whole do 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 do. No, not wasn't that one. It was the yip yip. The yip yip guys. It would be like yip 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 yip. Oh,
Yep. By the way, speaking of technobabble,
yes.
I just typed in some of Star Trek's best technobabble,
Mm-hmm.
and I ran across this interesting little lyric. This was posted to Live Journal, if you remember that site, back in 2006. Somebody posted this. So you're looking at close to 20 years ago. So just the other day, I was posting about the way Trek solves their daily problems. Someone replied and got me thinking about some more Voltaire lyrics that were very amusing. I thought I'd post them here for a chuckle. I totally recommend his music, Trek themed and otherwise. So this is called USS Make Shit Up by Voltaire. I was stranded on a planet, just me and Spock. We met a nasty Nazi alien who locked our asses up. We found a hunk of crystal in a metal piece of bed. We made a laser phaser gun and shot him in the head. Y'all remember that scene, Balance of Power? Where Spock and Kirk are out of some crystal embedded in his arm. Creates with the hole in the metal strap of a bed frame. He lines it up with the light and makes a laser beam. So just bust a move, Tog. I was standing on the bridge when Sulu came to me. His eyes were full of tears. He said, "Captain, can't you see? The ship is going to blow. Do something, I beseech." I grabbed a tribble and some chewing gum and stopped the warp core breach. And I say, by the way, does this make sense to any of you? The technobabble. You stop the warp core breach with some chewing gum and a tribble. You see the joke there? All the Trekkies laugh. All right. And I say, bounce a graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish. That's the way we do things, lad. We're making shit up as we wish. The Klingons and the Romulans pose no threat to us, because if we find we're in a bind, we just make some shit up. And though he's just a child and some think him a twit, Wesley is the master when it comes to making up some shit. He's the guy you want when you go out in space. Now, if only he could beam those pimples off his face. And if you're at a party on the Starship Enterprise and the karaoke player just plain old up and dies, set up a neutrino field inside a can of peas. Hold on to Geordi's visor and sing into Data's knee. And I say, bounce a graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish. That's the way we do things, lad, when we're making shit up as we wish. The Klingons and the Romulans pose no threat to us is obviously the chorus, because if we find we're in a bind, we just make some shit up. Cisco's on a mission to go no bloody place. He loiters on a space station above a Bajoran space. The wormholes opened up and now they come from near and far. We'll keep the booze, but please send back the fucking Jem'Hadar. Meaning those were the exciting shows. What is with the Klingons? Remember in the day, they looked like Puerto Ricans and they dressed in gold lame. Now they look like heavy metal rockers from the dead with leather pants and frizzy hair and lobsters on their heads. And then they go through the chorus, bounce a graviton beam off the main deflector dish. Well, I was stuck on Voyager, pounding on the door, when suddenly it dawned on me, I've seen this show before. Perhaps I'm in a warp bubble and slightly out of phase. Because it was way back in the 60s when they called it Lost in Space. We were looking for a way to make the ratings soar, so we orchestrated an encounter with the Borg. Normally, you'd think that that would get us into shit, but this one has a smash bag ass and a lovely set of tits.
Oh god.
Sorry, I think they're talking about 7 of 9 to boost
Or-
ratings.
Or Janeway.
So,
Oh no, wait, to boost ratings. Yeah.
boost ratings was definitely 7 of 9.
Right.
They've got her dressed in less tight garb for the last season of Picard. She's actually in a uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. But I was looking at trying to find some of the techno babble that they would come up with. Techno babble is not unique to Star Trek, as many other science fiction television shows and movies create their own technological terms, but the phenomenon is most associated with the Star Trek franchise. From phase inverters to tachyon beams to EM radiation, a lot of technobabble includes actual scientific terms and principles. But most Star Trek shows have employed a science consultant who ensures that the majority of the science has its roots in reality. Although sometimes things fall into more of the fiction category of science fiction. Regardless, Star Trek wouldn't be Star Trek without a healthy dose of technobabble. And there's something undeniably endearing about the sometimes nonsense jargon.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's interesting. I was trying to find some of the best techno babble lines from Star Trek, and just not finding any quotes. Geordi's best techno babble. Let's put in quotes and see if we get something, because I think this would be interesting. The best technobabble exchange ever in Star Trek. No, that's asking a question. Some of the silliest pseudoscience jargon in Star Trek. The worst technobabble in pseudoscience comes from Star Trek Voyager. Voyager writers went nuts with this stuff. A crack in the event horizon. In the Voyager episode Parallax, the ship is caught in the event horizon of a quantum singularity. In other words, a black hole. Because of a weird quantum effect where they were seeing and receiving messages from past and future versions of Voyager, they analogized the event horizon as being trapped under a sheet of ice over a frozen lake, and the ice is reflecting their image back at them. So by this logic, they just have to find a crack in the event horizon. So yada yada. So the Heisenberg compensator is a device mentioned in Star Trek. As a
nebula.
It's a component of the transporter technology to compensate for the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, allowing for precise matter transportation. So the term is a nod to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle in quantum mechanics, but is used in a humorous and exaggerated way in the context of the show. What else I got? The antimatter containment field. While the concept of antimatter is grounded in real physics, the idea of a field specifically designed to contain antimatter safely is a common trope in science fiction, including Star Trek. The term is often used without much explanation, blah, blah, blah. Subspace in Star Trek. Subspace is a fictional realm that exists alongside normal space and is used to explain faster than light communication and travel.
I was going to say subspace carrier waves.
Right, subspace. A subspace signal just came in, Captain. So while the concept of subspace is a common element in science fiction, its portrayal in Star Trek often involves vague and unscientific explanations. How about the warp field? Warp drive. Take her to warp 8.2, Mr. Sulu. Is the technology that allows starships in Star Trek to travel faster than the speed of light. The warp
we can no longer go over warp 5 through certain regions of space. Okay.
I don't know. The warp field is the
damaging cyber to reality.
That's what?
There was that whole episode in Next Generation where they basically put an intergalactic speed limit in place.
Oh,
through certain regions because
speed limit. Ready to go.
The warp
5.
fields when you were blowing through past certain areas at like warp 9 point whatever, it was creating all of these ripple effect issues
Right.
in the local planets and environments and stuff
Mr.
like that.
Data, bring us to warp 5. Do not exceed. So, let's see. What's it say about the warp drive here? Warp drive is the technology that allows Starship in Star Trek to travel faster than the speed of light. The warp field is the energy field generated around a starship to facilitate faster than light travel. While the idea of warp drive is a staple of science fiction, the specifics of how warp fields work in Star Trek are often hand-waved with technobabble. So the warp drive had to have, it was something that was, it would warp, it would bend space. So you could travel faster than the speed. I don't know how that works, but there you go. Enough of that. Enough of that tomfoolery. Yeah, warp speed, Rapid Dog. That's right. I used to have I had at one point in the late 80s, it was after my divorce from my first wife, I had a Ford EXP. A Ford, wait, what was the car? A Ford something EXP. It was your typical little Ford car, that looked like a Honda Civic sometimes, but it was an EXP, so it was a sport model. And on the dash, I had put one of these. I picked it up at a Star Trek convention that was in Minneapolis. Little square with the sticky backside and a toggle switch. And I stuck that on my dash with the toggle switch, and it said warp drive on it. I just click that up, and the sad thing was I sometimes did that when I had no passengers in the car to entertain. It was like, I think I'll just go into warp speed. Click. And nobody's in the car to watch. That's when you know.
There's a thing that's floating around out there on the internet somewhere where it's it's a meme, but it's like how it feels when I turn off my AC in my Econo box to whatever, and shows Picard and he's doing a hand gesture while giving a command. That classic type image, and it says, Jordy, divert all divert all power from life support to propulsion. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I was just gonna see if you could still get these.
Warp drive switch for dash.
Yes.
Probably can. There's got to be somebody out there that makes something.
Wow, they got a lot of on Amazon. A lot of real stuff popped up, and it's not warp speed stuff. It's got all kinds of toggles that you can put on your dashboard for something.
I like the
charger.
The replacement buttons in your console. Where you always have that. They make so many things that, they obviously use parts across models and things like that. It lowers their production cost. And then all they do is they have the button blank in so that, the features that would normally be controlled by a button would be in that location. And so you don't have like a gaping hole in the dash.
Right.
And they have like replacement covers and replacement like button covers that'll say, it would be something for your AC, or it'd go into where a blank, a button blank was, and it'd be like ejection seats and, like missiles, guns.
Yep.
All that stuff. It's I've also wanted to get some of those, but I never follow through. Maybe one of these days.
I don't see too many of those. I'm looking up. I'm using the wrong search criteria, I'm sure. But yeah, I'll have to find. I probably have to go to a convention to find one of those.
Ejectocito.
Right. I always like the warp speed. Showing a picture of one here. Remember in the episodes, it was at the big navigation console in front of the bridge, where they had them sitting side by side. And Sulu, even in the old episodes, and then the newer movies and stuff, and the newer shows, they have this switch. I don't know what they call those. A lever that he would actually take and go.
Right.
Increase
Throttle.
the warp speed. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, speaking of Star Trek things and car accessories, I just remembered something. So I walk out here to the Beetle, and you will appreciate this.
Uh-oh.
And now I can take this to work with me in the Atlas because it'll fit on that one. I picked up this little ditty. Just crack a window a little bit. So getting warm out.
Getting warm.
Hey, get this vaguely set up to where it can be
Viewed.
appreciated.
Probably. Oh, nice. Oh, it's your window screen.
Yeah.
A bridge shot of the original crew. Very nice. I'll have to pick myself up something like that.
I kind of wanted to find one where it has Kirk, where he's, one of his pictures of Kirk where he's all like,
yeah, from the sun.
yeah.
Nice. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up today. It's after 11 in the morning.
What?
At least
Already?
out here, it's noon out east, but it's only 9 a.m. on the left coast. So I think we could safely say this is a good time to wrap it. We've been going for 2 hours, talking mostly car talk and Star Trek techno babble. But there you go.
Click and clack, eat your heart out.
What's that?
Click and clack, eat your heart out.
Yes, that's right.
The old car talk radio show.
Oh. See, I wouldn't know that because
It's on NPR.
Boring. I just wasn't into cars, so that was my thing. So
that's all right. History won't judge you much.
That's right. And sadly, Field Guy, we tell you we're sorry you have to go to work today.
Oh no bueno.
So yeah, no good. All right. Well, Jason, thank you for joining me this morning.
Well, thank you for having me as always. I know we veered off on some atypical topics, but that's kind of the fun of things when
it
you
is
have the random conversations that kind of go everywhere.
Right.
Tickles the ADHD brain.
It does, in a way. Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's the ADHD brain.
Yeah.
All right, brother. So you have a fun day. And
Thanks.
I will talk to you probably tomorrow at some point. If
Yeah,
not later
probably.
today, for no reason at all that I can think of. So, all right, brother. You have a good day. Everybody else, thank you for coming in this morning. Appreciate you being here. And we're going to get out of here. Let you go enjoy your Sunday. And we'll see you tomorrow. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Central Standard with the Intrepid Radio program. This is not the official show on Sundays, as most of you know. This is just chit-chat on a Sunday morning with coffee. So thank you for being here. We'll see you next time. Live long and prosper.